I'm in Lefkada today, the most accessible of the Heptanissa, or 7 islands of the Ionian Sea. I'll meet 2 home cooks who will share some of their favorite local dishes.
Intelio.
And learn a quick and easy lentil soup recipe. Back in my kitchen, I'll mix up a wonderful Ionian Pulenta.
One of the best foods I've ever had in Greece.
Make garlicky eggplant from Zakynthos.
If you could bake summer, that's what it would taste like. It smells really yummy.
And bake a delicious Cephalonian 3-meat pie. Join me on My Greek Table for a flavorful odyssey through the lush Ionian Islands. The Ionian Islands, specks of emerald green in the sapphire waters between Greece's western coast and Italy. Corfu, the 2 tiny islands of Paxi, Ithaca, Cephalonia, Zakynthos, and Lefkada make up the Heptanissa, or 7 islands. Lefkada, the only one of the Heptanissa with a bridge to the mainland, is known for its unique embroidery and home to the best lentils and most renowned salami in Greece. Zakynthos is home to a delicious olive oil steeped cheese called ladotiri and some of the most robust tomato dishes in the country. The legendary wine Robola and famed meat pies are among the culinary riches of Cephalonia. Jewel-like tiny paxi are a favorite of the yachting set. And the small mountainous island of Ithaca was home to the most storied hero in ancient Greek literature, Odysseus. These islands are at the heart of the trade routes between East and West, and from the time of the Roman Empire, they have been coveted by every dominant power in the region. While the French, Russians, and English have all left their stamp on these islands, 400 years of Venetian rule has left a mark that is still felt today, most notably in the architecture, dialect, culture, and cuisine. They covered Corfu with olive trees and Zakynthos with currant vines. Throughout the Ionian, the tomato figures prominently in countless recipes and sauces. From the most delicious charcuterie in Greece to dishes with Italian-sounding names such as sofrito, burdetto, sarza, and mandolato, the 7 islands tell a story all their own, intertwined with global powers and Greek traditions into a unique whole. Sometimes the simplest country recipes are the ones that have the most interesting stories, and that's exactly what I'm making for you today. It's a dish found all over the Ionian called Pulenta, and it's a delicious creamy cornmeal that has a whole variety of uses in the kitchen. This version of it, which is from the island of Lefkada, calls for a little bit of garlic, and I'm taking out the green sprout on the inside because it's a little bit bitter. I'm gonna chop my garlic and just cook it very gently so that it's ready to go in to the cornmeal as that boils with hot water. A little bit of olive oil and butter, and gently cook my garlic in that. I'm gonna get that into the frying pan and swirl that around. This is really gonna take a minute. Cook the garlic until it just starts to get that light golden brown color. And I'm right at that point, so I'm gonna get it off the heat. I've got 2 quarts of water that have come to a boil. I'm gonna add about a tablespoon of salt to that. And this is the tricky part. You want to add your cornmeal, and you want to look for a coarsely ground cornmeal or polenta, little bit at a time, and stir it as you go. I'm doing this a little bit carefully. The whole idea is to cook the polenta in this boiling water. It's already starting to thicken. It'll take about 20 minutes probably to cook.
And when you can handle the bowl, just pour it in and stir all the while. I'm just gonna whisk this a little bit to smoothen it out. In this pot is kind of the whole post-war history of Greece, because this was a food that people ate during the most dire years of poverty in World War II. When they got back on their feet again, they didn't want to look at this. It reminded them too much of painful days. And now it's been rediscovered by young Greek chefs who are using it in innovative and creative recipes and pairing it with all sorts of things. I'm gonna add a little bit of olive oil to this now, and that will help give it a nice, comforting, velvety texture. And I'm gonna get the garlic in here next. It's already smelling delicious. This is ready. It's been simmering for about 20 minutes. It's peeling away from the sides of the pot, and it's sputtering on top. I'm gonna add a little bit of butter, swirl that around, and I'm going to crumble a little bit of feta cheese into this. That's my little twist. The feta will melt in here, but also give it a little bit of texture. And this is ready to serve. You just want to be very careful because it's super hot. As this cools down, it will thicken. It smells delicious. It's got this beautiful earthy smell to it. Just a little dab of butter on here. And a tiny, tiny bit of feta cheese. Which I'm just gonna cut into little pieces. Sprinkle on top. The saltiness and the brininess of the cheese goes really well with the earthiness of the polenta. Take a little bite with some feta cheese. Be careful, this is very hot. This is really soothing. It's easy to understand how this has been rediscovered by young chefs. But for me, the traditional soft, creamy polenta of the Ionian Islands is still one of the best foods I've ever had in Greece.
On Lefkada, I'm meeting up with a pair of home cooks, Kyria Gogo and Kyria Vaso. They want to share some of their favorite dishes from the island. A phyllo pumpkin pie with raisins and walnuts.
Σε κάθε φύλλο που το στρώνουμε στο ταψί, ρίχνουμε κανέλα, ζάχαρη και γαρίφαλο και σουσάμι. Σε κάθε φύλλο.
Και πόσα φύλλα είναι στρωμένα?
3 είναι στο κάτω μέρος και 2 είναι στο επάνω μέρος.
Zucchini and crab fritters.
Και πώς σας ήρθε να βάλετε καβούρι μέσα?
Επειδή σήμερα είχαμε πει για τον μπακαλιάρο, λίγο πιο λαχανικό και αυτό σκέφτηκα θα ταιριάζει.
Νόστιμο είναι, πολύ.
Ναι.
And a traditional salt cod soup.
The vegetables cooked first with olive oil and water. Once the vegetables are almost cooked, the fish goes on top. It's absolutely delicious. It's not at all salty. It's really creamy. From the olive oil, the lemon juice, and the starch in the potato. Είναι τέλειο. Γεια στα χέρια σας.
Ναι, να είστε καλά.
Να είστε καλά.
I'm making one of the most delicious vegetable dishes in all of the Ionian. It's called melitzanes skordostumbi. And it's a very, very simple dish of pan-fried eggplant in a very light, garlicky tomato sauce. This one's unique because it has a nice sweet and sour taste with a little bit of red wine vinegar in the tomato sauce. We want to get the slices to about a ½ inch thick because they're going to soften in the olive oil and then bake in the tomato sauce, so I don't want them to fall apart. A little bit of salt sprinkled into the eggplant. Just lightly toss this. Make sure the salt kind of gets everywhere. Eggplant is like a sponge, so it will absorb the olive oil very, very quickly. We're just gonna lightly fry these. Get as many as will fit in one layer. As soon as they're a little bit soft and lightly browned, I'm gonna turn them so that they're colored on both sides. I'll get the rest of the eggplant ready while those are in the frying pan. That's exactly what we're looking for, this nice, deep golden color. And these are still a little bit firm. We don't want the eggplant to tear apart, basically. Be sure to always drain fried eggplant on a paper towel. We don't want this to be greasy. And this last piece here. While the eggplant is frying, I can get started on my tomato sauce. And I have to finish grating these beautiful, fresh Greek tomatoes. It's definitely better to do this with fresh tomatoes. Eggplant and tomato are always in season at the same time. They're summer vegetables. The eggplant is ready. This is the last of them. And the next thing I'm going to do is get that beautiful light tomato sauce going. I'm just gonna replenish a little bit of the olive oil in here. There's quite a lot of chopped garlic. You just want to do this really fast. I don't want color on this because I don't want the garlic to be bitter or crunchy. The tomatoes are going right into the garlic. This needs to cook down a little bit. I am going to season it with some salt and pepper. Tomato always needs a tiny bit of something sweet to balance the acidity. The easiest and most accessible sweetener is sugar, but you could also use a bit of honey. The other ingredient going into this is some nice, strong red wine vinegar. The combination of vinegar and sweet is a very old tradition in Greece. It's something that even the ancient Greeks used to do to flavor their food. Of course, tomatoes didn't exist in ancient Greece. They're a New World ingredient. So I'm just gonna let this cook until it thickens up a bit and all these flavors kind of bloom. And that's gonna take probably about 15 or 20 minutes. The sauce is looking perfect. The first thing that goes in here is a little bit of sauce right on the bottom. I will add a touch of olive oil to this as well. Now I'm just gonna start layering these sauteed eggplant slices in here. You can add your own combination of fresh herbs if you like. You can even add a little cheese in this. It's very accessible cuisine. You want to get the eggplant in here as snugly as possible in one layer. This combination of tomatoes and eggplants is probably one of the most defining combinations in the entire Mediterranean. From Turkey to Portugal, all over North Africa, you find this in different renditions. Just a little bit. I want to save some sauce for the top. Just press these down a little bit. And whatever sauce is remaining in the frying pan, I'm going to get it right over this. Spread this out. One last finishing touch. I like to just spritz this with a little bit of red wine vinegar right at the end. And do that. This is ready to go into the oven at 350 for about 45 minutes until all the flavors melt together. I can cut through it and the entire kitchen smells of that beautiful garlic aroma. This looks and smells amazing. A little bit of parsley over this beautiful eggplant dish. How big a piece should I cut? I just want to get this gorgeous eggplant out of here and onto my plate. Get a little bit of Lefkada Pulenta, which is nice and soft and totally comforting, right on the side, just a little bit. Cut a wedge of Greek feta. Ready to enjoy this perfect Greek vegetarian meal from the Ionian Islands. If you could bake summer, that's what it would taste like. I love the meaty texture of the eggplant. It's soft, but it also holds together, so you can actually, you feel it. That's what we want. That lovely baked tomato flavor is so Greek. Together with the garlic and the vinegar, there's a lot going on there. It's kind of like an explosion of flavors on my palate. This goes really well with one of northern Greece's rosés. This is made with xinomavro, and it's from the Amindeo region. It has this lovely strawberry aroma and nice mouthfeel, and it stands up really well to the headiness and the robust quality of all these vegetables together.
Lefkada is renowned for its lentils, usually cooked into a simple soup like this. Pour cleaned and rinsed lentils into cold water and bring to a boil. Add as many whole garlic cloves as you like. Give it a stir and cover. When the lentils have absorbed most of the water, slowly add olive oil, stirring all the while until the soup starts to thicken. When the soup is rich and creamy, add salt and a sprig of dried oregano and serve. A lentil soup that's simple, hearty, and the taste of Lefkada.
The largest and greenest of all of the Ionian Islands is Cephalonia, and I'm making one of its most famous dishes today, a 3-meat Felo Pie. Warm up the olive oil so that I can brown this beautiful meat here. And I've got beef. This is a bit of chuck. You don't want pieces that are too fatty, but you do want cuts that are tender. Next in goes the pork, one of the most important meats in all of the Mediterranean. And the third of our 3 meats is a little bit of this chopped lamb. I'm doing this over fairly high heat to get a little bit of color. Just want to season it with a little bit of salt and a little pepper. Cephalonia is really famous for its savory pies, and this is the signature dish on the island. The next thing I'm getting into the pot are 2 finely chopped red onions. The onion just needs to be softened a little bit. Garlic goes in next. The aroma has already changed. Just a little bit of garlic goes a long way. And the next ingredient to go in here is something that defines most of the savory pies on the island of Cephalonia, and that's rice. Something that's apart from places in Greece. Just want to coat the rice in the olive oil and in all these beautiful pan juices. The tomatoes go in next. And I'm just using good quality chopped canned tomatoes with all their juices. Greeks' favorite spice in tomato sauces, and that is cinnamon and allspice. I'm going to add a little bit of water to this so that the rice cooks partially before this goes into the filling. I want the rice to absorb all the liquid in here. The filling is nice and cooled down, and I'm going to just finish it off with an egg, which will bind this all together. Get that mixed in. It smells really yummy. A little bit of parsley, grated kefalotiri cheese. This is a sharp yellow sheep's milk cheese. It goes really nicely with the meat, and it'll give the final texture of the pie once it's baked, that beautiful gooey cheese, melted cheese texture. And the next thing I'm going to do is prepare the filo. The first thing I want to do is oil my pan. We do that so that the filo doesn't stick to the bottom. I'm using commercial filo for this recipe. I'm just going to roll it out very carefully. If you buy this frozen, you always want to make sure that it's defrosted overnight and at room temperature when you work with it. Brush it very generously with olive oil. You basically need to layer enough filo to hold up to a substantial filling like that. So 6 layers on the bottom for this are just about the minimum. Don't worry if it tears. Okay, and I'm just laying this in here like that. Getting onto my next sheet. You have to be a little bit fast when you work with phyllo. The reason we keep it covered is to keep it from drying out. You want to make sure you get the edges, that's the most important thing. And this, I'm laying down in a different direction because I want there to be even overhang on all sides of the circle. Okay. And all of this excess will get turned into a really nice rim. This is the last one. Just gonna get the filling in here next. This, I'm just gonna spread this evenly around the pan. This is going over the top. Pat that down. This is going over horizontally. You want the overhang just to be as evenly dispersed as possible. Okay, now this, I'm gonna do a little bit differently. Put it on the inside of the rim as much as possible. Wrinkle it up a little bit. And when this bakes, it's gonna be really pretty. I'll get my last sheet here. Try to keep the pleats sort of even. So I'm gonna trim it just a little bit as I roll it inwards. If it's too thick, it might be a little bit raw in the center, and we want to avoid that. This is really moist with all the olive oil. I'm basically turning in the top and the bottom sheets. Continuing to do that all around. This is ready to go into the oven. I'm just going to brush the rim a little bit with a bit more olive oil because the bottom side, which I turned in, not oiled. I'm going to bake it at 350 for about 50 minutes. My cephalonian meat pie is ready. Look at that. It just has to sit for about 20 minutes to a half hour before I can cut into it. I love pita. That's phyllo pastry, phyllo pies. We all have probably tasted a spinach pie, spanakopita at some time or another, but that isn't even the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the variety of these beautiful flaky pies that exist all over Greece. Look at that. It smells amazing. It's a Sunday family meal. That is the first thing that comes to mind with that very first bite. All those different meats play beautifully against each other. The rice kind of brings everything together and adds a little extra comfort level. But the crunch of the phyllo is what really brings this all together and makes it not only comfort food, but exciting comfort food. I have a wine that I think will pair really nicely with this. It's produced in Florina, and it's made with 3 grape varietals, Syrah, Xinomavro, and Merlot. The hints of cherry and plum work beautifully with the sharpness of the cheese and the richness of this multi-layered meat filling. Isi Gian, enjoy Greek food.